everyone. My name is James L. Carr Jr., U.S. Senate candidate. I would like to welcome Mr. Zane Matthews from our hometown of Lexington, North Carolina, for a meet and greet on economic development. Mr. Williams, I really appreciate you joining me. Excuse me, Mr. Matthews, I really appreciate you joining me and sharing your vision with our great state. Now, you had some questions for me. And first, you had mentioned that you knew my dad, and after seeing you, I do remember you. So
good, great.
But yes, yeah, and that's sort of, people always know me by my parents, so James of Virginia. So I know you had some questions for me, so please ask away.
Yes, I wanted to get kind of your take or your opinion on economic development, particularly in Davidson County, and as it has its effect on the African-American population. As you know, here in Davidson County, we have some serious issues with affordable housing. And it appears to me from my research here in Lexington, recently we have received $1.5 million in community development block grants for building reuse, and none of these funds have gone to people of color.
Right.
And we are registered voters, taxpayers, and have been doing business here for many, many, many years. So as far as economic development, for lack of a better word, I don't see the trickle-down effect or the inclusionary practices.
Right.
I work a lot in the energy field, and recently I've been getting a lot of opportunities for affordable housing with faith-based groups. And I don't really think that we have a lot of partners that I can put something together with here in Lexington. And that's not a real good situation, because the church has been the base and the hub of our community for years and years and years, but we travel quite a bit across the state, and we see what other communities, cities and municipalities are doing. And then when you come home, you don't see any of this taking place. And I think there's a disconnect with our leadership to do what I call the trickle down effect, because I mean, our tax dollars count. And I think there should be some inclusion for us in the acquisition of land, real estate development, and opportunities in general. There is a lot of economic development going on here. And as we speak, they've already approved about 480 some new houses here that workforce people can't afford. And because of the wage structure here. And it's kind of my opinion that when we have an economic development commission, but nobody that looks like me is on that commission.
Right.
And I think that they're telling these people that want to move here and relocate here that they obviously asked for the wage structure, and companies that were paying real good money years ago are coming here because of the low wages,
right,
and kind of cheap land. So we just have some concerns about, we're excited about the economic development that's happening in our area, but I would like to see more people benefiting from these processes. And we are a hub certified veteran-owned small business. And there are a lot of opportunities. The city has several construction projects on the table. And we feel like that you're using our tax dollars, we should have some representation and we should be at the table.
Right.
And like we struggle all the time trying to get to the table. And many of us are not in that category that they lump all of us in as cleaning contractors.
Right.
I mean, we're licensed general contractors, licensed real estate brokers, veteran-owned business. Wife has a law degree, and we've been in business many, many, many years. And just to put an issue out here to further kind of define what we're talking about is the Dunbar School, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with.
Oh, went there.
Well, in Rutherford County, where my wife is from, the Black community owns the school.
Okay.
Now, the Dunbar School was on the market for $50,000 years ago.
Okay.
And I was chomping at the bits to buy it, create a nonprofit and buy it. And my wife was really against it because she said, if we bought it, then everybody would want to tell us what to do with it. Nobody would bring much to the table. So now the developers are wanting to do senior housing. Okay. About 70-some units, and there was a lot of mixed reaction in the community about this project. A lot of people didn't want it to take place. I have to be very careful here, Mr. Carr, because we're kind of used to dealing with a lot of progressive thinkers. Right. And we had a Rosenwald school here. The community didn't care that it was demolished. And now they put up a plaque. So, I mean, if you look at across this state of ours, all 100 counties, and you look at Rosenwald schools, the communities are taking these schools and remodeling them, and making community centers. And the Jewish Rosenwald project was a massive project, and for some reason, we didn't see that value. Again, we take a different look at things. Reverend A.T. Evans bought a tract of land, cut it into 50 building lots. To me, that is economic development and being proud of people that look like us and doing things to support us. It's just my personal opinion that there is a tremendous disconnect with our legislators and local leaders and the community. Again, I just strongly believe economic development should be for all people, not just a select few. Again, $1.5 million in community development block grants in the Depot District in Lexington. None of those people look like us. And, you know, we have had the opportunity to be in meetings with Michelle Sanders, who is the Secretary of Commerce. And, you know, we're familiar with the community development block grant process. But I don't see us kind of getting a share of that money that's coming into our city and our county. Okay. And I wanted to know if you had any plans to address economic development.
Without a doubt, that's part of how I see infrastructure investment in general. I think that is, my whole philosophy is that we need to invest in people and empower people. And I think infrastructure investment is obviously a big piece of that. That's one of the 4 pillars that I'm running on. And so when I think about the scenario that you laid out, the one thing that I'm hearing a lot of is that same story, that people of color are being left out of that bidding process and not having access to the same resources, and obviously there's a part of it is who you know, but that can't be the only part of it. And I think definitely, I'm glad that you're making your voice heard, because this is a common complaint, and I'm going to be posting the other conversations I've had, and you'll see that this is pretty consistent. So from my perspective, it's bringing attention to the issue, number one, and putting a voice and a face behind it, so that it's not, I think sometimes, you know, quite frankly, when people of color make comments like this, it comes across as sort of like we're not taken seriously, that somehow we're complaining, or we're not wanting to work hard or work for opportunities. Of course, we're willing to work hard. We're willing to do what's necessary to be successful. But there are built-in flaws in the system, and not, you know, from a racism standpoint, but just flaws in general. There is a lot of good old boy networking that goes on. And so, you know, from my perspective, it is it kind of thinking about like economic development in general from an infrastructure perspective is ensuring that the bidding process is fair. But also, so you mentioned Dunbar, that's an interesting situation for me because recently I went up to Philadelphia and they have a place called the Marketplace up there. And it was pretty awesome in that it's a lot of vendors. It's a huge place, a lot of vendors. You can pretty much get whatever type of food you want to get, you can get there. Other little side products that you want to get, you can get there. And it's a great hub in the city area. And when I think about Dunbar, that would have been that's a perfect place for something along those lines, because it's not that far from the interstate. So even people coming from outside of Lexington could enjoy that. And you could also have, when I think about a situation like that, I think about entrepreneurs who can go in, rent out space and sell their product, whatever their product is. It could be rugs, it could be, food products, whatever. So that's what I think about in terms of economic development and ensuring that everyone can participate in that bidding process. Is how I would see that.
That is very interesting. Back to infrastructure, I have addressed the city. We look at purchasing building lots to build affordable, green, energy efficient, and healthy housing. That's kind of our forte. And we've run across a lot of areas where we can't purchase the land because the infrastructure is not there. There's no water and sewer there. So that kind of eliminates the fact that we're dealing now with the developer out of Charlotte that is going to do 150 houses here. And he says it's very attractive because you have city water, sewer, gas, everything is here.
Right.
And it's interesting that you mentioned about a place for the vendors. We have a garden that is certified, and my wife will sell vegetables and stuff at the market here in Lexington. Again, Brother Carr, I have to be a little bit very careful here because I would like to see our faith-based organizations seem like get a little bit more active in issues that affect us directly.
Right.
We designed what I call a state-of-the-art voter registration project that is very integral part of our culture and seems to be not well received. We need to have our voices heard and do it through voting.
Exactly. Can you tell me a little bit about this process?
Yes. I approached Ruth Honeycutt, who has passed away, and I requested the number of registered voters in each ward that were of color. And we set up a proposal that said, basically, after we crunched all the numbers of the registered voters in this city, less than 60% of them actually voted.
Wow.
I mean, it had names, addresses, contact information, and knew most of the people. So we wanted to do a process where we divided up the community and approached these people to have them come and vote. Then voter education is important. You need to know who to vote for, and this process was not received well locally, but I had some out-of-town people found out about it and wanted to kind of copy it, and I was glad of that.
Right.
And another issue that's dear to us is substandard housing. We need clean, affordable, energy-efficient housing for our people, home ownership and rental.
Right.
And like I said, I'm a green builder, and we do green build and renovation, and we can offer like comfort guarantees. We can tell you what your utility consumption is going to be. Because we've been doing this a long time. We don't have anybody doing anything for our veterans. We just got recently approved as a veterans builder.
Right.
We can take a set of house plans, make the modifications to where a disabled veteran can purchase his home And the VA will give them $101,000 to pay down their mortgage.
Okay.
I mean, it ain't gonna get much better than that. So
yes.
we need to, and my wife was a captain in the military.
Okay.
And we need to kind of do a self-assessment of where we are and map out a strategy of where we can go or where we should be. And there are young people like yourself that make me excited and proud of the work that you're doing and the attitude that you have. And you're very knowledgeable of the issues that affect people that look like you and me.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And well, they say the chip don't fall from the block. Because like I said, I knew your dad real good.
Right.
Worked with him.
Yep. Yep. Definitely, I can say that my parents prepared me for life. I've had a pretty easy life, to be honest, just falling back on the things that I learned from them and things I learned in Lexington. So I've definitely been truly blessed. I want to get to, when you mentioned voting, and I like to, and we could probably take this offline, I like to learn more about that. I think it is something that we can share and something to get voters registered. I also think that part of that problem too is, to me as a politician, as a candidate, is to give people something to go out and vote for. And I think a lot of times people just don't vote because our candidates are not really doing a great job of motivating people to get out and vote. And I think you're seeing, like, part of the push to me from Republicans is sort of basing the gerrymandering and voting rights restrictions on the fact that they think that people really don't want to vote, that they will really, that the apathy in voting is what they're counting on. And I think, one of the things I would say, again, from my perspective, is give someone a reason to come out and vote. But the other part of that is ensuring that everyone understands that if you don't vote, it will get worse, because if you don't want your voice heard, then no one has a reason to listen to it. And so there was absolutely, and you kind of see how campaigns are run today, where they're run with, I'm gonna create a win-lose situation. For the people that vote for me, you're gonna win. If you didn't vote for me, you're gonna lose. And so that's the imperative of getting out and voting. And I think you also mentioned, when you talked about affordable housing. Now, this is something that I've experienced personally when they put a Walmart across the street from my parents' house. And the property taxes went up from $300 and some a year to $1,700 a year, and currently at $1,900 a year. And so one of the things, when you have the problem with, I think, rural areas and development, is not realizing that when outside vendors come in, they're going to increase property values because they have a lot of capital, but the people that live in those areas don't have that same capital. So that's why all economic development needs to be internal, or as much as possible needs to be internal. For that very reason, I know it's attractive for someone to say, well, here's money and here's how I'm going to develop this land, because they can do it cheaper because they have access to capital. I get calls probably at least once a week and a postcard once a week asking me if I'm going to sell that land. But these are developers. These are not people that are going to live in the house. These are people that are going to develop the land and basically increase the property values for everyone else in Lexington. So I think, from the elective representatives, it's understanding that, and I think, again, this is part of my responsibility as well, is to ensure that the community is growing from the inside out, not from the outside in, because you're creating an unfair situation if it's coming from outside the community. And obviously there are times to partner, but I think that's what communities need to look at, is partnering with outside vendors. Sort of my utopia view of life would be, you have families that are moving to Lexington, not businesses. You have families that are moving as we increase, I talk about infrastructure. High-speed rail is a big one for me. I spend a lot of time up in New York, and it's just amazing to be able to get around, not have to drive everywhere. 5G internet speed, where people can work from longer distances. You can work remote. You still can have access to the city life if you want the city life. And my point is that you want to bring capital from people working into the city, as opposed to bringing businesses to do that same thing. So we can, again, Lexington to me is a very attractive place to live. Even if you don't work in Lexington, it's a very attractive place to live. And I think if you grow from that perspective, you know, sort of like you allow incomes to rise appropriately, you can build affordable housing that's not driven by outside interest. It is driven by what are the economics of Lexington, North Carolina, and what can a person afford in housing. And that is how the house is built. And even if you're going to bring someone in from outside, that to me is a commitment. Now, this is not against capitalism in any way, but it is saying that someone coming from outside the city can create an economic disadvantage for everyone in the city. So,
well, Mr. Carr, you doesn't surprise me that you're very sharp. And while we're talking, I'll just tell you, I know you've done your research, and the development is coming down the street where you own property, yes, not Fairview Drive. Mm-hmm. And we purchased a property that adjoined yours, and we sold it to Badcock Furniture out of Florida. Mm-hmm. Of course, now we do our due diligence. Mm-hmm. We changed the zoning to commercial. Right. Mm-hmm. Had an engineering consultant come in and do the core drilling to see if it would support several stories. Right. Then the property ran all the way back to Edna Street, and it was a win-win for us because we developed the front Highway 8 and the backside. Okay. Put 4 houses back there. Mm-hmm. And I like the terms that you're using about developing these relationships and partnerships. Mm-hmm. But given this conversation that we're having, Mr. Carr, I'm old enough to realize that years ago and in the past, they didn't care how big you got just so you didn't get too close. Yeah. But now they seem to reverse that. They don't care how close you get, just don't get too big. Oh, yeah. So when you do your homework and your due diligence, sometimes you're not received well. Mm-hmm. It's very easy for people to label us as being arrogant, you know, because when you know better, you tend to do better. Right. So we study the businesses and we take a serious look at what's coming here. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like I said, the one development group out of Charlotte is coming. Houses they're going to build going to be around $350,000. Yeah. That's not workforce housing. Right, exactly. Not workforce housing. When you make $36,000 a year, you can't afford a $150,000 home. Exactly. But if you can go out and partner with the cities and the municipalities and buy their vacant lots at a reasonable price, that can drive the house down, the value of it, you know, the price. Also, there are numerous grants out there to build energy efficient housing. Right. If I build a systems agent house, it's a $4,000 grant. Mm-hmm. And there are first-time home buyer down payment and closing costs. Different groups you can stack these one on top of another and move into house with nothing down. So there's a strong educational component too that needs to take place. Oh, yeah, definitely. And people are beating on your door. What y'all got for rent? And I keep saying, well, look, can you change that mentality and say, what can I do to become a homeowner? Exactly. Because that's a wealth building feature. Without a doubt. A wealth building feature. And we're just excited to have had the opportunity. I'm sure you knew Roger Nichols. Yes, definitely. Well, Roger Nichols, if the Matthews and Rogers would look at the number of entities we have in the register of deeds, it's about 800. And that's no small feat. Right. So we have done some deals in the real estate business here. You have. That have some meaning. And there's some things, Mr. Carr, and I'm sure you're aware that you can't keep unless you give them away. We do a lot of pro bono work. Right. People want to know, how do we do this? How do we do this? How do we do this? And I think we need to get better at that. The HOPE funds. People's utilities being cut off and they can't pay the rent. We show them how to apply for these funds. Right. Everybody else is getting. But if you're in this area sometime, we'd be delighted if you would give us a holler. Yes, sir. I should chat with you. Well, awesome. I'll be there Saturday. You will?
Yes, sir. At the convention, there's a kind of Democratic convention.
Yeah,
I'll be there Saturday, so I will look you up. And so I have your email. I'll shoot you an email for an address or where we
okay.
can meet up together. I think you are such a wealth of knowledge. I think, it's funny as you're talking about energy efficient housing, and obviously green energy is a big deal. And I think it's talking about it in practical terms, because I think it gets lost in this sort of wish list on both sides of what they would want, but you're talking about it in a more practical sense. And I think this is what I mean by voices of ordinary Americans really getting heard, because I think so many times we're kind of debating from too high of a level. And I think even what you're talking about in terms of the impact of development in Lexington, it is, from the outside looking in, and this is for rural areas in general, there doesn't seem to be a great partnership or sort of what is the goal from the city council on down? What is the goal? What are we trying to achieve in the city? And I think, like partnering with you, even if you're partnering with someone outside, it's still the economic benefit is being felt by a resident of Lexington. And I think it's like trying to make sure that those in position of authority actually understand that you're building win-wins for the citizens of that community. Because yeah, of course, people that come, sort of like working for a corporation, that I've worked for corporations where the founder, for large corporations where the founder still operated the company. And you had one feel, but once the founder left, it became more of a business. And that to me is what happens when you bring outside vendors in. You lose that feel of what made the city what it is. And so I think, again, from my perspective as a candidate, it's just ensuring, like when I talk to rural leaders, making sure that we're building the rural area up. I think you have to have economic development for these areas to survive, but you have to do it from the inside out. So,
Well, I made a phone call yesterday to set up a meeting with the county manager, and they screened their calls, and the receptionist said, well, I need to talk to you about the nature of the call. I said, it's about affordable housing in the county. She said, we don't do housing in the county. Well,
right.
There's a lot of money left on the table for affordable housing, irregardless of whether it's city or county. So, and just for the record, I've been keeping an eye on your property here.
Yeah.
I knew everybody that lived on that street, and
right.
that's what we do, and sometimes you have to go out of where you live to be accepted.
Right.
We do a lot of work in Greensboro, Raleigh. We have opportunities in Charlotte, but I've worked across the state with the weatherization department.
Okay.
And a lot of the energy efficient programs. So we're excited about what we do, and I'm even more excited after having had this conversation with you, because again, I have to be very careful. I see people run for office, and I said, what is your agenda? And they say, hey, I see a bunch of signs, but tell me what,
right.
Why should I come vote for you?
Right, exactly.
And so that can become touchy sometimes, but I'm not going to take up a bunch of your time. And again, I can't thank you enough, my wife and I, for all the great work that you're doing, and we do vote. So
yes, sir. And I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I think sometimes it's hard to realize how much of an impact your voice will have on so many people, because I think one of the issues in the Black community too is that we don't really express ourselves as well as, we don't make the point of saying we have a voice, listen to us from an emotional level, not from a whatever level you want to add in there, but listen to us from an emotional level. And I think you have just been awesome in expressing yourself. So thank you.
But Mr. Carr, I want to make one more point. I have requested a list of city-owned property and asked that they would give me that list and say to me, this is surplus property because we don't have any plan to use it. I'm talking about buildable lots.
Right.
And I've been unable to get that list.
Mm-hmm.
And I did find some properties and submitted an offer to purchase and contract 4
Right.
months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Hadn't heard anything. So
Right. Okay.
sometimes the doors ain't open for everybody equally.
Oh
But
yeah, without a doubt.
I mean, I think we all know that.
Oh
But I do apologize for, didn't mean to take over the conversation,
No,
but
I
I hope you
appreciate
can
this.
feel the fact that we're proud of who we are
Yes.
and we're proud of what we do. And we just want to see things get better. And like I said, if we don't vote,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of shooting yourself in the knee, for lack
It-
of a better word.
Exactly. And I'll just leave it with this, that, you know, again, it is so important that your voice be heard. So you are definitely helping my campaign out. You're giving me an opportunity to speak, but you're also giving me an opportunity to share what everyone is really thinking and everyone is feeling. And it's not me saying it, it's you saying it. It's a voter saying it. And again, I can't stress enough how important that is as we go down this road. So, you know, big thanks, really appreciate it. And best of luck. And I'll be reaching out to you on a couple of issues. Oh, I did want to say one more thing too about, this is just a side note on, to me, the expectation of someone in a position of authority is that if you don't have the answer, you should be able to point someone to the answer. And I think that's another expectation that we should have, that even if you don't answer the question, you should be able to point me to the next step in that journey. So that's one of the things I'm going to be pushing as well. So,
well, I say a classic example. If I submit an offer to purchase and contract to purchase a piece of property, it's 2 documents in one. It's an offer to purchase, and then when that's signed and accepted, it becomes a contract. And I've talked to 10 people.
right.
And I can't seem to get it on the docket for them to vote for
Oh, okay.
after 4 months. But anyway, thank you again. Thank you
Yes,
again so much. And you take care of yourself, stay safe, and let's keep in touch.
Will do. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And you
Okay,
take
the
care
pleasure
now.
has
And
been mine.
tell your wife I say goodbye.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.